If someone had told Ashley that, while she was gently rubbing her slightly swelling belly, happily calculating how to use her unborn baby's cord blood to snatch her terminally ill husband back from the Grim Reaper, that very dying man was popping sketchy blue pills in the dimly lit parking garage of their country club, desperate to get under his high school sweetheart's silk skirt. She would have assumed the writers in this ultra-wealthy zip code had officially lost the plot. But in this Vanity Fair built on champagne and haute couture, reality is always 100 times more absurd than any soap opera. Just 3 days ago, the atmosphere in the nation's top private oncology ward was so heavy, the air felt frozen. Nicholas, a trust fund baby, born with a silver spoon, who was used to writing checks to make his problems disappear, melted into the premium leather sofa like a puddle of mud when the silver-haired chief of oncology gently uttered the words, "aggressive late-stage leukemia." The man who usually walked through society galas with invincible arrogance lost all his pretenses. He cried like a terrified, oversized toddler, gripping Ashley's hand like a vice. Snot and tears ruined her expensive cashmere wrap as he shook like a leaf in the wind. "Ashley, save me. I don't want to die. I have so many trusts I haven't cashed out yet. I can't just die." In that moment, Ashley had felt genuine, gut-wrenching grief. Before marrying into this picky, old-money family, she had been one of Wall Street's sharpest, most cold-blooded venture capital analysts. She was used to calculating the exact ROI of every deal. Yet in this marriage, she had willingly retracted her claws to play the gentle, safe, submissive, perfect trad wife Nicholas wanted. The baby was an accident, but it had suddenly become a miracle sent by God. Ashley had stayed up nights, reading dry medical journals, confirming that a stem cell transplant from their newborn's cord blood was Nicholas's best shot at survival. She was ready to endure all the miseries of pregnancy just to bring this little life, the vessel of her husband's salvation, into the world. But the shelf life of this great romance and self-sacrifice didn't even last 72 hours. On what should have been a quiet Tuesday afternoon for resting, Nicholas took Ashley's spacious luxury SUV, claiming he needed to visit an exclusive meditation retreat upstate to manage his death anxiety. Ashley was sitting alone at the minimalist kitchen island, preparing to sync her husband's latest brain CT scans to their private home server. The exact second she typed in the password, the cloud system auto-synced with the SUV's dash cam and security audio. An unnamed audio file popped up. As a former VC analyst, Ashley had an instinct for data anomalies. Something told her to click play. The glass of sparkling water froze halfway to her lips. What came through the speakers wasn't the ethereal chime of Tibetan singing bowls. It was the ear-piercing scrape of stiletto heels against premium leather seats, accompanied by heavy, nauseating panting. "Jesus, Nicholas, could you spray some cologne and cover up that sour pregnant woman smell in your wife's car? It is totally killing my mood to go shopping for Birkins later." It was Serena, the former high school prom queen who had Nicholas wrapped around her finger back in the day, only to dump him for an elderly European billionaire. Just last month, word on the Upper East Side was that the billionaire went bankrupt, and Serena had slinked back to the States with 3 divorce settlements and a maxed-out credit card, desperately hunting for a new sugar daddy to foot her bills. On the audio, Nicholas's breathing was abnormally heavy, wheezing like a broken accordion. "Don't bring her up, babe. Ashley is just a boring safety net. She is a spreadsheet in human form. Only you, my wild little kitten, make me feel alive." Next came the frantic sound of someone rummaging through the glove box, followed by the sharp pop of foil blister packs being aggressively torn open. "What are you taking, vitamins?" Serena asked, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "A man's secret weapon. Newest stuff on the black market. Guaranteed to blow your mind this afternoon," Nicholas panted with a sickening manic energy. "This damn chemo prep has me feeling weak lately, but I refuse to go soft on you." Smack, Ashley slammed her crystal glass down on the marble counter, water splashing everywhere. She didn't cover her mouth and weep like a tragic housewife from a Lifetime movie. Nor did she hysterically smash the antique vases. Instead, a surge of incredibly dark, absurd humor electrified her veins. It all made sense now. Why Nicholas had been getting random nosebleeds. Why he was constantly running a dangerous low-grade fever. Why even his doctors were baffled by his wildly erratic white blood cell count. This absolute moron, knowing fully well he had late-stage blood cancer and a collapsing immune system, was secretly popping black market Viagra that put massive strain on his cardiovascular system, all to prove he still had it to a broke, gold-digging ex. He thought he was living out some tragic, romantic last hurrah. In reality, he was slamming the gas pedal straight to hell with his dick. A theft. A laugh escaped Ashley's lips. It started soft, then echoed through the empty, cavernous mansion, dripping with bone-chilling mockery. Sadness, anger, number at this exact moment. Ashley felt like she was watching a premium stand-up comedy special from the front row. As a woman who was logical to the point of being ruthless, the moment she confirmed an investment was rotten to its core. Her perfect wife programming uninstalled. In its place, rebooted the Wall Street apex predator who used to eat men alive. If Nicholas didn't give a damn about his own life, why the hell should she sacrifice her body and her future for this idiot? What was even funnier was that Nicholas was so desperate to impress Serena. His IQ had flatlined. He hadn't even covered his basic digital footprints. The audio was still playing. Serena's giggle sounded like a cheap plastic toy. "But honey, your wife is pregnant. If she pops out an heir, won't that little wooden doll take all your money? I don't want to marry you just to play wicked stepmother to someone else's brat." "Relax, babe." Nicholas's voice turned ice cold, laced with a sickening arrogance. "No one gets to be the mother of my children but you. Ashley's pregnancy was a mistake anyway. I never planned on letting her keep it. I already called Dr. Martin. I'll find the perfect excuse tomorrow to clear out the dead weight." Clear out the dead weight, that was her loving husband, issuing a death sentence to their unborn child. And ironically, issuing a death sentence to his one and only cure. The smile faded from Ashley's lips. Her beautiful eyes, usually warm and soft, turned into bottomless voids. She quietly closed the cloud window, zipped the audio file, and securely forwarded it to her hidden encrypted email. She stood up, slowly smoothing out the wrinkles in her silk loungewear, and walked over to the massive double-door smart fridge. Inside sat premium snow-toad hash and rare, expensive herbs, ingredients she had flown in at exorbitant prices to brew a restorative broth for Nicholas's immune system. "Well, since you need so much stamina to prove yourself out there, as your wife, I fully support you." Ashley murmured softly as she turned on the stove. She dumped double, no, triple, the amount of the highly potent heat-inducing herbs into the slow cooker. She even thoughtfully went to the safe hidden behind a painting in Nicholas's study, retrieved his stash of illicit, highly stimulating deer blood powder, and generously dumped 2 massive scoops into the pot. His blood vessels were already a ticking time bomb from the black market pills. Adding some high-octane fuel to the fire would surely make for a spectacular show. The rich broth bubbled on the stove, emitting a mouth-watering aroma. Ashley leaned against the counter, watching her own cold reflection in the window glass, the corners of her mouth curling deeper. Before her mocking laughter could fully fade from the kitchen, the electronic chime of the front door, unlocking, rang out, followed by Nicholas's voice, feigning exhaustion, yet dripping with a forced, gentle warmth. "Ashley, honey, I am home." He dragged out the last syllable, trying to project the peaceful, soul-cleansed exhaustion of someone who had just spent hours at a high-end meditation retreat. Ashley turned around, her gaze sweeping over her husband. Honestly, Nicholas looked like a bankrupt clown who had just escaped a third-rate circus. His bespoke suit, which should have been impeccably tailored without a single crease, had suspicious wrinkles around the shoulders and waist. To mask Serena's nauseatingly sweet signature freesia perfume, he had clearly oversprayed his cologne in the car. The kitchen now smelled like a cheap motel room doused in air freshener. Better yet, his face was the color of translucent parchment paper, with terrifying dark circles under his eyes, the hallmark of terminal illness clashing with extreme overindulgence. As he took off his shoes, he absent-mindedly wiped his nose with the back of his hand. Ashley's sharp eyes caught a small smear of half-dried dark blood on the inside of his cuff. "Darling, you look awful. Did the meditation not help?" Ashley rushed over, flawlessly taking his coat, her face the picture of impeccable wifely concern. "Oh, staring death in the face is draining." Nicholas sighed weakly, leaning against her shoulder. His acting was atrociously bad. "But knowing I have you and the baby makes me feel like I can get through anything." If she hadn't literally just heard him call her a boring wooden doll half an hour ago, Ashley might have handed him an Oscar. "I am so glad here. I simmered this restorative broth for you all afternoon. Drink it while it is hot." Ashley gently handed him the bowl of souped-up, highly combustible stew, her eyes flashing with a cruel amusement she barely recognized. Nicholas didn't suspect a thing. Honestly, he felt completely hollowed out, desperately needing something to patch up his organs, which were currently being shredded by the black market Ed Meds. He took the bowl and greedily gulped down the dark brown concoction of deer blood and snow toad. Watching his Adam's apple bob, Ashley happily counted down in her head. At this rate of supplementation, this arrogant Wall Street elite would likely pass out with a massive nosebleed the next time he tried to mount Serena on her silk sheets. With the hot soup down his throat, a sickly, flushed color returned to Nicholas's pale face. He put down the bowl, his expression suddenly shifting into one of profound, devastated sorrow. He reached out and took Ashley's hand. "Ashley, there is something terrible I have to tell you. I don't even know how to say it." Right on cue, his eyes reddened. "Dr. Martin called me half an hour ago. The results of your non-invasive prenatal genetic screening came back." Dr. Martin, the notorious concierge doctor for the ultra-wealthy, a man who would forge a birth certificate for a politician's bastard child if the check had enough zeros. Ashley sneered internally. Here we go. The climax of the fuckboy's script. "What is wrong? Is the baby okay?" Ashley's eyes instantly welled up. She gripped his hands back, her shoulders trembling, delivering a flawless performance of a terrified, fragile mother-to-be. "Dr. Martin says the fetus carries an extremely rare, fatal chromosomal defect. Not only will the baby not survive 3 days after birth, but as it grows, it will cause severe, life-threatening hemorrhaging for you. Ashley, I can't lose you." Nicholas's voice cracked. He pulled her into a tight hug, resting his chin on the top of her head, smothered in the scent of hospital antiseptic and expensive cologne. Ashley stared blankly at the marble floor. She felt absolutely zero sorrow. Instead, she was genuinely impressed by Nicholas's sociopathy. To clear the runway for his ex, he packaged his excuse with such selfless love, aborting the baby to save his wife's life number. No, that is impossible. Let's get a second opinion. Ashley tore herself from his embrace, crying out in faux desperation. There is no time, darling. Dr. Martin said your blood markers are already deteriorating. For your safety, we have to do the surgery immediately. Nicholas grabbed her shoulders, his tone leaving no room for argument. I already have the driver waiting. Dr. Martin cleared out an entire floor at his private clinic. We are leaving right now. Half an hour later, they were sitting in a private clinic that looked more like a five-star hotel. Dr. Martin pushed his gold-rimmed glasses up his nose. Under the surgical lights, the six-figure limited edition watch on his wrist gleamed. Sitting behind his massive walnut desk, he pointed at a stack of professionally forged, highly complex charts, lecturing Ashley about this non-existent, fatal genetic defect. Ashley kept her head down, sobbing, looking utterly broken. But from beneath her silk scarf, her eyes coldly analyzed the two men performing this masterful duet. She could calculate the exact math in her head to get Dr. Martin to risk his medical license for a lie this massive. Nicholas must have wired at least $500,000 from his offshore accounts. Do it! Ashley finally looked up, her face stained with tears, her voice shattered. If it is meant to be lost, I don't want Nicholas worrying about me while he's fighting cancer. Hearing this, a flash of ecstatic relief passed through Nicholas's eyes. But he quickly covered his face with his hands, pretending to break down in tears. The surgery was incredibly fast. In this world, medical care bought with endless cash is always the most efficient. When the anesthesia wore off and Ashley opened her eyes in the luxurious VIP recovery suite, her lower abdomen felt empty and sore. The perfect project she had viewed as the savior of her marriage and her husband's life had now been completely liquidated. She felt no lingering attachment, the offspring of a man who would stab her in the back without a second thought. A burden destined to be born into betrayal and lies. Wasn't worth a single tear from the former queen of venture capital. The suite was dead quiet. Nicholas was nowhere to be seen. She didn't have to guess. The grieving husband was definitely hiding in some unmonitored stairwell, eagerly calling his golden girl to report his victory. Ashley threw off the covers and stepped barefoot onto the thick wool rug. She felt thirsty. She figured she'd walk over to the doctor's private office next door to get some water and retrieve her phone, which she had left there earlier. The office door was ajar. Dr. Martin was obviously on another floor doing rounds. Ashley pushed the door open, her eyes casually sweeping over the massive curved monitor on the desk, which hadn't gone to sleep. As a corporate shark with a lethal eye for data, the two windows sitting side by side on the screen instantly nailed her to the spot. On the left was an encrypted medical email Dr. Martin hadn't closed. It contained Ashley's real prenatal screening and cord blood matching analysis. Right there under the red stamp of an independent third-party lab, it read clearly, fetal genetic screening, 100% healthy. And directly below that, a line of bold red text slapped the entire upper echelon's collective IQ right in the face. Fetal cord blood stem cell, HLA typing match with patient Nicholas Sterling, 10 divided by 10 perfect match. Strongly advise retaining as sole curative donor. On the right side of the screen was the back-end portal of Dr. Martin's private offshore bank account. An anonymous wire transfer of $800,000 had just cleared. The memo line contained one wildly arrogant sentence, cleared out cleanly. NDA is now active. Ashley stood frozen in front of the glowing screen for 10 full seconds. Then, in the dead silence of the office, she clamped a hand over her mouth, her shoulders shaking violently as she laughed. So hard tears literally streamed down her face. Brilliant, absolutely the greatest dark comedy of the century. Nicholas, the self-proclaimed Wall Street genius, the man who had schemed and calculated his whole life. This cold-blooded animal who would eradicate his own flesh and blood just to satisfy his dick, had just paid $800,000 to bribe a dirty doctor to rip the only cure in the world out of his wife's. He had literally, with his own two hands, pulled his own life support plug. Oh my God, Nicholas, should I call you a tragic, romantic dying for true love, or praise you for being an absolute fucking genius? Ashley laughed soundlessly, her mind ice cold. She pulled out her phone, took crystal clear photos of the real lab results and the bank transfer, and uploaded them, alongside the forged defect report, straight to her newly established encrypted cloud vault. In that instant, the very last shred of her moral obligation as a wife vaporized into dust. Since Nicholas was in such a rush to die, it would be a sin against nature not to help him along. But before that, this soon-to-be widowed billionaire's wife had a very important liquidation process to wrap up. Ashley grabbed a tissue and elegantly dabbed away the tears of laughter from the corners of her eyes. Her gaze turned as sharp and freezing as Siberian permafrost. Want to take me to the cleaners to make room for your true love? She scoffed coldly, sliding the phone into her hospital gown pocket. Let's see if you have a single dime left in your trusts to pay for your morgue freezer when you take your last breath. Just as Ashley slipped her phone into her pocket, faint footsteps approached from the hallway. Like an agile Persian cat, she slipped silently back into bed, pulled the covers up, and slotted herself perfectly back into the mold of the devastated, fragile wife. The very next second, the door opened. Nicholas walked in. He even managed to squeeze out 2 crocodile tears. In his hand was a cup of warm black truffle honey water that cost $50 at this ridiculous clinic. Darling, you've suffered so much, he said, sitting on the edge of the bed, holding the cup to her lips, his voice oozing fake tenderness. Dr. Martin said the surgery was a complete success. The poor little guy is in heaven now. Yes, he is in heaven. Ashley lowered her eyes, her long lashes hiding the icy mockery spilling from her pupils. Nicholas, you'll remember this day forever, won't you? Of course. I'll spend the rest of my life mourning him, Nicholas vowed, gripping her hand. Ashley sneered internally. Oh, you'll remember it, all right, hubby, because you just paid $800K for a VIP one-way ticket to hell. For the next 2 weeks, Ashley naturally played the role of a woman recovering from a miscarriage. Nicholas, meanwhile, completely let himself go. Maybe getting rid of the defective burden that would have split his inheritance made him feel invincible. Or maybe the ticking clock of terminal cancer triggered a manic, pathological need to party. He started staying out all night, using busyness handovers and meetings with estate lawyers as excuses. Every time he came home, his handsome face looked more sunken. The dark circles under his eyes were so heavy that the most expensive concealer couldn't hide them. His body, ravaged by cancer cells and black market ed meds, was flashing code red warnings. A few times, Ashley even saw him standing over the marble bathroom sink, blood dripping from his nose like a leaky faucet. Yet he remained blindly confident that it was just a side effect of him reclaiming his manhood. To play the perfect wife, Ashley served him his Vitality brew, right on time every day, loaded with double the secret ingredients. Watching him gulp it down like a parched gambler gave her more joy than front row tickets to the best Broadway comedy. Nicholas might have had the patience to play the long game, but Serena, who desperately needed a meal ticket, did not. As the most notorious drama queen in their social circles, Serena couldn't stand being the hidden mistress. She was itching to mark her territory, even if the territory currently belonged to a walking corpse. On a Thursday afternoon, Ashley had her driver take her customized SUV in for detailing. Half an hour later, the dealership manager called. He sounded mortified. "Mrs. Sterling, while we were cleaning the crevices of the passenger seat, we found, a personal item that doesn't seem to belong to you. Shall we throw it away or send it back?" Ashley said, her voice perfectly placid. "Put it in a sealed evidence bag and use the fastest premium courier." When the paper bag bearing the dealership's logo landed on her mahogany desk, Ashley used a pair of silver antique book tweezers to peel it open with disgust. Inside was a violently tacky pair of neon pink, handmade French lace panties. Not only did they reek of Serena's signature Freesia perfume, but someone had blatantly drawn a cheap lipstick heart on the inside. Immediately, Ashley's phone buzzed. Serena had just updated her Finsta, fake Instagram account. The photo showed a pair of long legs propped up on the dashboard of Ashley's SUV. The caption read, "Oops, left my most intimate gift in the chauffeur-driven car. Hope the boring old prude doesn't have a heart attack when she finds it." Fanny, normal wife, would have been shaking with rage, ready to slap her husband across the face with the fabric. But Ashley, she was Wall Street's apex predator. Faced with such a low-level provocation, she felt nothing but pity for Serena's spectacularly low IQ. "Want to play social suicide? Be my guest." Ashley elegantly picked up her teacup of Darjeeling, a chilling smile playing on her lips. She didn't confront Nicholas. Instead, she found an exquisite Tiffany blue premium gift box. Using the silver tweezers, she dropped the perfume-soaked panties inside and tied it off with a luxurious silk ribbon into a perfect bow. Next, she slid a gold-foiled card into the blind box, writing in flawless Spencerian script, "To the esteemed Mrs. Eleanor. I hear you are currently reviewing new membership applications for the country club." While aggressively petitioning for entry, Miss Serena accidentally left this personal resume on the passenger seat of my husband's car. Given the club's century-old standard of high moral character, I believe this documentation will be highly relevant to your background check. A concerned neighbor dedicated to our community's values. Who was Mrs. Eleanor? She was the iron-fisted matriarch at the very top of the zip code's pyramid and the chairwoman of the country club's ethics committee. She despised bankrupt gold diggers who used their youth to trap rich men, especially since Serena had recently made the fatal mistake of batting her eyelashes at Eleanor's 70-year-old billionaire husband. In less than 12 hours, this precision-guided social nuke detonated across the Upper East Side. When Mrs. Eleanor opened the box, she nearly had a heart attack. She immediately had her butler carry the panties on a sterling silver platter and dump them in the exact center of the club's afternoon tea courtyard. Serena's application was blacklisted for life. Every backup sugar daddy she had been stringing along dropped her like the plague, blocking her number. Overnight, Serena became the biggest laughingstock in high society. The mastermind Ashley was currently sitting by her floor-to-ceiling windows, sipping bird's nest soup and talking on an encrypted line with her best friend, Harper, a top-tier asset liquidation lawyer. Jesus, Ashley, that was a fatality. Harper laughed so hard she was out of breath. I bet Serena is smashing plates in her rented shoebox apartment right now. Just a warning shot. The real show is yet to come. Ashley stirred her soup lazily. How are we doing on our end? Smooth as stealing candy from a blind kid. Harper's tone shifted into cold professionalism. Using the medical POA Nicholas gave you, I've transferred the Hamptons beach house, both yachts and those authentic Gogans he owns, all moved into your prenuptial irrevocable trust under the guise of legal tax evasion and medical asset isolation. His brain is so fried by that socially anxious mistress and his blue pills. He doesn't even have the energy to read the spreadsheets he is signing. Excellent. Ashley looked out at her perfectly manicured lawn, her eyes dark. Nicholas thought he was Romeo dancing on the edge of death. In reality, he was just a puppet dancing on his wife's strings. Over the last few weeks, right after Nicholas drank his spiked soup and became drowsy from his spiking blood pressure, Ashley would slide him thick stacks of routine tax documents to sign. Now, aside from an empty shell of a title, 80% of Nicholas's actual liquid assets had been completely gutted from the inside out, like a Trojan horse. But Ashley, heads up, Harper lowered her voice. I just flagged a massive anomaly. Nicholas liquidated his last hidden offshore account in the Caymans. $3 million. He used it to commission a custom 6-carat pink diamond from a private jeweler. And he rented out the most exclusive private vineyard in Napa Valley. Ashley paused. What is he doing? He's throwing a wildly extravagant secret commitment ceremony this weekend. Harper's voice dripped with sarcasm. Looks like after getting nuked by the socialites, Serena forced him to give her a title to save face, since he can't legally marry her until you divorce him. He is burning cash on a fake wedding to prove his epic love. Wait, a month after forcing his wife to abort their baby because he is dying of cancer, he is renting out Napa for his mistress. Ashley literally started clapping. She was genuinely in awe of his audacity. The script is amazing, so romantic, and absolutely repulsive. What is your play? Walk into his hospital room with the divorce papers and force him to sign? Harper asked. Number Ashley stood up, walking into her massive walk-in closet, her fingers trailing over rows of haute couture. Since he spent his last dime building such a magnificent stage, it would be terribly rude if his obedient, loving wife didn't show up as the surprise keynote speaker. Ashley's eyes locked onto a razor-sharp, floor-length gown in a fiery, burning crimson, the color of revenge, the color of blood. Harper finalized the asset manifests and the divorce papers. And get that recording of Dr. Martin ready. Oh, and have the SUV detailed again. Ashley looked in the mirror and smiled. A radiant, breathtaking smile that looked like the Grim Reaper coming to collect. This weekend, I am attending a funeral, and I am bringing the ultimate wedding gift. The sunset over Napa Valley always possessed an expensive quality, as if filtered through pure wealth. Inside the ultra-exclusive private vineyard, surrounded by tens of thousands of imported white roses, a farce was taking place. It was billed as a commitment ceremony, but it was really just two desperate narcissists licking their wounds. Nicholas had drained his final $3 million offshore account for this. The guest list consisted entirely of D-list influencers looking for free caviar and vintage champagne, plus a few frat bros paid handsomely to keep their mouths shut. After the apocalyptic pink lace panty incident, not a single respectable old money family would even send their golden retriever to Serena's party. Serena didn't care. She wore a hilariously ironic, pure white haute couture gown with an absurdly long train, topped with a diamond tiara. She looked like a swan trying to shake off the mud from the swamp she just crawled out of, clinging proudly to Nicholas's arm. As long as that 6-carat pink diamond landed on her ring finger, she would still be the winner. Nicholas, however, looked like a walking disaster. To survive a 3-hour outdoor party and prove his love in the bedroom later, the terminal leukemia patient had swallowed a double dose of his illicit blue pills before the ceremony. Now, standing in the romantic breeze, his dress shirt was soaked through with cold sweat. His legs trembled like jelly, and the hand holding the velvet ring box shook violently, yet he maintained his fake alpha male facade, leaning into the microphone to recite vows that would make any sane adult throw up their lunch. Serena, my one true love, for you I have paid an unimaginable price. I even cleared out the unnecessary obstacles in my life. Nicholas stared deeply into the eyes of the fake woman before him, tearing up at his own perceived martyrdom. Today, on this soil that has witnessed so many miracles, I can finally, without hesitation, place this ring. Sorry to interrupt this deeply touching moment, but if you put that ring on her finger right now, the repo men are going to have to chop her finger off to get it back during the bankruptcy proceedings. A crisp, elegant voice, sharp as a glass cutter, sliced through the vineyard's premium surround sound speakers, echoing across the sea of roses. Everyone gasped and whipped their heads around. A black, bulletproof, extended Maybach had silently pulled up to the edge of the lawn. The door opened, and Ashley stepped out in towering black stilettos, looking like a queen of the underworld inspecting her domain. She took slow, deliberate steps onto the white petal-strewn aisle. Her fiery crimson gown was blinding against the pretentious sea of white, looking exactly like a drop of fresh blood on a wedding dress. There was no hysterical crying, no jilted wife screaming. Instead, Ashley wore a terrifyingly amused smile, looking at them the way one watches two circus monkeys trying to do handstands. Ashley! Nicholas's pale face instantly turned ashen. He stumbled backward, the illicit pills racing through his system. Triggered by pure panic, made his pulse hammer violently against his temples. What? Why are you here? Aren't you supposed to be recovering? Recovering. If my husband has the energy to hide from his family and rent out Napa Valley for his mistress, how could your obedient, understanding wife justify staying in bed? Ashley smiled gracefully, her eyes scanning Serena's expensive dress like a high-tech barcode reader. I have to admit, Serena, your taste is still stuck in your high school cheerleader era, but the dress suits you. It perfectly covers up how filthy you are on the inside. You crazy bitch, where is security? Throw her out. Serena shrieked like a stepped-on cat, clinging to Nicholas's arm. Nicholas, make her leave. Save it, Serena. I paid the security guards triple their day rate to go get coffee behind the estate. After all, who says no to the person actually paying for the party? Ashley chuckled. She opened her black Herm Phase clutch, pulled out a beautifully embossed gold envelope, and handed it to Nicholas. Open it, darling. I prepared a very special engagement gift just for you. Nicholas took it with trembling hands. He expected printed photos of his infidelity or a begging letter. But when he pulled out the documents, his pupils shrank to pinpricks of pure terror. It was a massive airtight asset liquidation and divorce agreement drafted by the most ruthless legal team in the country. But what really plunged Nicholas into an icy hell wasn't the divorce itself. It was the attached manifest. It detailed every single asset he thought he had hidden. Real estate, art, stock options, all legally transferred out of his name over the past month, via the tax authorization forms he had personally signed. His accounts were hollowed out. What the fuck did you do? Nicholas's head snapped up, his handsome face twisting into a demonic mask. You transferred everything. This is robbery. This is illegal. Illegal, no, 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 Nicholas. Every single transfer has your signature and a notary stamp. Ashley dramatically covered her mouth in mock shock. Don't tell me you were so busy dreaming about buying Serena this pink diamond that you didn't read what you were signing. My even Wall Street elites make bad trades. Serena was confused, but the words transferred everything and hollowed out, triggered her gold digger spider sense. She snatched the papers from Nicholas. When she flipped to the final page and saw that the groom's liquid cash was essentially zero, all the blood drained from her face. Nicholas, she is joking, right? Serena's voice shook. You said you had trusts. You said you could guarantee me the high society life. Don't worry about his wallet just yet, Serena. We don't even know if he'll live to see next month. Ashley snapped her fingers. Back at the soundboard, the DJ who had already been paid off by Harper. Hit play the next second. The disgustingly dirty audio from Dr. Martin's clinic blasted through the speakers, hammering the crowd. $800,000 received. Mr. Sterling, your wife's fetus is perfectly healthy. Not a single mutation. Are you sure you want to terminate under the guise of a defect? Because that cord blood might be your only lifeline. Shut up and take the money. As long as it keeps Serena happy, who cares about a deadweight baby? Clean it out. When the recording ended, the vineyard fell into a deathly silence. The only sound was the wind rustling the grapevines. The influencers who came for free champagne couldn't even hold their glasses steady. They were used to high society cruelty, but paying $800K to a dirty doctor to murder your own healthy baby just to appease a mistress. It crossed every moral line, and the words "only lifeline" sent chills down everyone's spine. So Serena violently threw off Nicholas's arm, backing away from him like he was a monster. The baby wasn't sick at all. You murdered your own flesh and blood just to be with me. You are a psycho. You are a broke psycho. To Serena, murdering the baby was bad, but the word broke was the fatal blow. She scrambled frantically to pull the pink diamond off her finger, treating it like a virus that transmitted poverty. Number. No, it is not like that, Serena. Let me explain. Nicholas's mind shattered. His lies, his wealth, his total control over the board, all crushed into nauseating mud under Ashley's red heels. He lunged forward to grab Serena, then pivoted to try and snatch the papers from Ashley. The extreme panic, the blinding rage, and the massive overdose of black market pills finally detonated inside his cancer-ridden body. Nicholas felt the world spin. A high-pitched ringing pierced his ears. It felt like a giant, invisible hand was crushing his heart. The oxygen left his lungs. Splatter. Amidst the horrified screams of the guests, a thick stream of dark, foul-smelling blood violently exploded from Nicholas's nose. It sprayed directly onto Serena's six-figure white gown, creating an abstract, deeply ironic splatter painting. My dress! Don't touch me! Get away! Serena shrieked hysterically, shoving the swaying Nicholas away with zero hesitation. Losing his balance, Nicholas crashed into the bed of white roses like a chopped-down tree. He convulsed in agony, blood soaking his bespoke suit. His eyes, bulging with terror, stared fixedly at Ashley. Ashley looked down at the man twitching in the mud. There wasn't a trace of pity in her eyes, She looked at him the way one looks at a bag of medical waste about to be thrown into the incinerator. Sign it, darling. While you still have the strength to hold a pen. Ashley leaned down gracefully, tossing the divorce papers and a luxury fountain pen right next to his face. Her voice was as gentle as a lullaby. Otherwise, when you get to the ICU and realize you can't afford the resuscitation fee, that would just be too pathetic. As the blaring sirens of approaching ambulances echoed in the distance, Ashley turned around. Amidst the swirling white petals and absolute chaos, she walked back to her waiting Maybach without ever looking back. In Manhattan's top VIP hospital, the smell of antiseptic always carried a suffocatingly expensive aura. When Nicholas Sterling finally opened his eyes from the chaotic darkness, waking up felt like a cruel punishment. Cold oxygen tubes were shoved up his nose, IV needles stabbed into his hands, and the monotonous, fatal beep-beep of the heart monitor filled his ears. He tried to turn his stiff neck, only to lock eyes with a terrifyingly cold gaze in the shadows of the room. It was his mother, Mrs. Sterling, the iron-fisted matriarch who wore South Sea pearls even when getting a facelift, sat perfectly straight in a velvet armchair. Both hands rested on her silver-handled cane. Looking at her dying son, she showed zero maternal sympathy, only the extreme disgust one reserves for reading a bankruptcy filing. You are awake. I assumed you had already vomited out your life, along with the Sterling family's dignity, all over those white roses. Mrs. Sterling said softly, but her words whipped him like a belt covered in broken glass. Mother. Nicholas rasped, sounding like sandpaper. He tried to sit up. Ashley, that bitch. She set me up. She stole my money. Shut your idiotic mouth. Mrs. Sterling slammed her cane against the marble floor, the sharp crack echoing through the room. Do you think people in our circle are blind? You popped cheap black market boner pills for a bankrupt escort and paid a doctor to abort your wife's baby. Right now, every country club in Manhattan is passing around the video of you shooting blood out of your nose. You've nuked a century of Sterling family dignity because you couldn't keep your pants zipped. Nicholas flinched as if a bucket of ice water had been dumped on his head. In this family, dignity and profit were the only things that mattered. Once you became the laughingstock of the elite, the trust committee would surgically remove you like a tumor. So Nicholas's pupils dilated in panic. What are you going to do? To protect the core family trusts, the committee has decided to permanently freeze all your remaining account access. Mrs. Sterling stood up, smoothing her flawless tweed jacket. She looked at him like he was already in a coffin. As for your medical bills, the family will cover the basic room rate. If you want your astronomical experimental drugs, go beg your heartbroken wife, because she is holding every drop of your liquidity. Without another word, the ruthless matriarch turned on her heel and walked out, as if she had just taken out the trash. Nicholas collapsed back onto the pillows, gasping for air. His elite, perfect life had crumbled like a termite-infested sandcastle in less than 24 hours. But the climax of this soap opera hadn't even arrived yet. Shortly after his mother left, the door swung open again. Ashley's best friend, Harper, the apex predator of Wall Street asset law, strode in wearing 7-inch Louboutins, bringing a draft of cold air with her. Behind her walked Dr. Evans, the hospital's chief of oncology. Good afternoon, Nicholas. Seeing you look like death warmed over really puts my mind at ease. Harper didn't even bother with fake pleasantries. She slapped the finalized divorce decree onto his tray table. Sign it, your family abandoned you, and you can't even afford a third-rate public defender right now. Sign it, and Ashley will mercifully pay off tonight's ICU bill. Nicholas stared at the papers, his eyes burning with helpless rage, but his trembling hands didn't even have the strength to rip them up. Like a rat cornered in an alley, he humiliatingly grabbed the pen and scrawled his distorted signature on the line. Perfect. Harper snatched the papers and shoved them into her briefcase. Now, Dr. Evans is going to update you on your excellent prognosis. Harper stepped back, crossing her arms, a cruel smile playing on her lips as she prepared for the show. Dr. Evans, a highly respected pillar of medicine, pushed up his glasses. Holding a thick file, he looked at Nicholas, not just with professional pity, but with sheer, baffled disbelief. Mr. Sterling, because your concierge physician, Dr. Martin, was arrested last night for medical fraud. Our board did an emergency audit of your files. Dr. Evans spoke calmly, but to Nicholas, he was reading a death warrant. Your leukemia, due to your highly inappropriate medical interference. Specifically, illicit ED medications that trigger cardiovascular collapse, has aggressively mutated. The cancer has metastasized. Standard targeted therapies will no longer work. Nicholas stopped breathing. Then bone marrow transplant. I have money, no. My family has money. Buy it from the registry. Name your price. Mr. Sterling, your blood type and HLA antigens are an incredibly rare global variant. The odds of finding a perfect match in the registry are less than 1 in 10 million. Dr. Evans looked at him with profound tragedy, then slowly flipped to the final page of the file. It was the real prenatal genetic report, stamped by an independent lab. Ashley had provided it. This is the part that baffles me the most. Dr. Evans's voice shook slightly, as if narrating a Greek tragedy. I reviewed your ex-wife's original screening. That fetus did not have a single genetic defect. It was perfectly healthy. More incredibly, the baby's cord blood stem cells were a 10 divided by 10 perfect match for you. The room fell dead silent. Only the icy beep of the monitor remained. Nicholas froze. It felt like molten lead had been poured into his brain. It took him several seconds to process the English language. What did you say? He rasped, his cracked lips trembling. Mr. Sterling, miracles like this are incredibly rare in medicine. That child was your one and only lifeline. Dr. Evans took a deep breath, holding the paper up. If that baby had been born, its cord blood had a 99% chance of completely curing your leukemia. It is a shame. I heard you voluntarily ordered the termination. You didn't just murder a perfectly healthy infant. You personally pulled your own life support. Boom. Lightning struck directly through Nicholas's skull. He paid $800,000. He bribed a dirty doctor. He did it to appease a mistress. He forced Ashley onto a cold operating table to rip out a burden. And it was the only cure in the world for his 1 in 10 million blood type. Number. No, that is impossible. Martin lied to me. He said it was defective. He lied. Nicholas suddenly started thrashing wildly in the bed like a madman. His hands clawed desperately at the sheets, violently ripping the IV lines out of his skin. Blood poured down his wrists. Extreme regret, pure terror, and the absurd, crushing irony of fate stabbed into his heart like 10 million poison needles. He could have been saved. He could have had a healthy child, a perfect wife, and decades left to live. But he used his own $800 K to buy a one-way ticket to hell. Nicholas unleashed a blood-curdling, inhuman scream, filled with despair, unwillingness, and bone-deep remorse. The massive emotional spike sent his blood pressure through the roof. Blood gushed violently from his nose again, and the lines on the monitor spiked erratically before flatlining into a deafening continuous wail. Code Blue! Get the crash cart! Dr. Evans sprinted toward the door. Harper stared coldly at the man convulsing and choking on his own blood. She turned on her red-soled heel and strutted out of the room, leaving the stench of death behind her. Meanwhile, 30 miles away at JFK International Airport, Serena, still wearing her blood-stained white gown with a trench coat haphazardly thrown over it, was screaming like a banshee at the first-class check-in counter. "What do you mean declined? This is a Swiss bank black card with no limit. Did you break the machine, you idiot?" Serena shrieked, drawing stares from everyone in the terminal. 2 hours ago, amidst the chaos of Nicholas collapsing at the vineyard, she had expertly stripped him of his wallet and credit cards. She even pocketed the 6-carat pink diamond before fleeing. She planned to catch the first flight to Europe to hunt down a new mark. "I apologize, ma'am," the gate agent said with brutal corporate indifference. "The system shows all cards provided were reported stolen and frozen by the primary cardholder 30 minutes ago. Furthermore, Port Authority police just received an alert. A high-end jeweler has flagged you for the grand larceny of a $3 million pink diamond." The blood froze in Serena's veins. She spun around in terror to see 2 massive airport police officers marching toward her, looking entirely unamused. Under the harsh fluorescent lights of JFK, the formerly invincible high society golden girl realized she hadn't just failed to secure a meal ticket. She was about to receive the most exclusive pair of silver bracelets she would ever wear. Karma had executed its margin call with the precision of a Wall Street algorithm. At that exact moment, on the terrace of a penthouse high above Manhattan, Ashley, draped in a liquid silver silk robe, stood barefoot on the warm wooden decking. She held a perfectly chilled dry martini, looking down at the glittering, sleepless city built on money and sin. Her phone screen lit up. A text from Harper, signed. Doctor told him the truth about the cord blood. He is coding right now. It is a fate worse than death. Ashley read the text, a breathtaking, intoxicating smile curving her lips. She tossed the phone onto the table, raised her glass to her reflection in the glass, and took a sip. "That was the most perfect excision procedure ever, Nicholas," she whispered softly, downing the sharp liquor. "Removing you as a tumor feels fantastic. In the Vanity Fair of Manhattan, no one has sympathy for a falling star. People prefer watching the skyscraper collapse so they can gossip about the dust cloud over afternoon tea." Just 1 month later, the once untouchable Nicholas Sterling became a taboo subject, a name not even fit to be spoken in polite society. He survived the code blue that night by some miracle, but his life had plummeted straight to the 9th circle of hell because he couldn't afford the 5-figure daily ICU bills, and his family had completely severed his medical funding. He was ruthlessly transferred to a loud, cramped public ward in a Brooklyn hospital. There were no lavender humidifiers here, no blonde private nurses, just rusty bed frames, the reek of cheap bleach, and the homeless man in the next bed moaning through the night. For a trust fund prince used to silk sheets and French champagne, the physical drop was agonizing. But what truly drove him insane was the psychological torture that ate at him like a flesh virus. Every single night, when the cheap morphine drip failed to stop the cancer from chewing through his bone marrow, Nicholas would wake up in a cold sweat. The moment he closed his eyes, all he saw was the 100% perfect match cord blood lab report. The child who should have inherited his genes, who should have cried a beautiful first cry, who would have given him decades of life, appeared constantly in his hallucinations. The baby would reach out its chubby little arms to hug him, only to melt into a puddle of blood. And the man holding the scalpel was Nicholas himself, who had murdered his own child for $800,000 and a gold digger's fake affection. "It was me. I killed myself." Nicholas would scratch wildly at his bald, chemo-ravaged scalp in the dead of night, whimpering like a dying animal. He tried to beg his family for help, but Mrs. Sterling had legally severed ties with him. She even blocked his number. The day after he was transferred, the family fast-tracked a distant cousin to take over his trust fund, erasing Nicholas's existence entirely. And what about his great true love, Serena? Last week, the New York Post ran a spectacular high-def photo on the front page, the former It Girl, wearing a wrinkled designer trench coat and steel handcuffs, being escorted out of a Manhattan courthouse by U.S. Marshals, looking haggard and makeup-free. It turned out the 6-carat diamond Nicholas had bought was a loaner display piece from the jeweler. It had a microscopic laser anti-theft serial number and massive insurance. Serena trying to flee the country with it immediately triggered a federal grand larceny charge. Worse, the massive loan shark debts she had racked up trying to fake her rich lifestyle came due the second she was exposed. Her mother frantically sold every Birkin and Louboutin in her rented apartment, but it didn't even make a dent. Now, Serena wasn't just facing 10 years in federal prison. She was going to be stamping license plates for the rest of her life to pay off the astronomical debt. In this world, some karma doesn't just arrive on time. It struts in wearing stilettos and stomps precisely on your weakest pressure point. Eerily winter in New York. The wind cut like a knife. Ashley, wearing a jaw-dropping champagne haute couture backless gown, sat elegantly at the head table of the annual Met Gala charity dinner. She was no longer the submissive, invisible, perfect wife. Tonight she was there as Wall Street's reigning queen of venture capital, fully sponsoring this astronomically expensive event. Under the spotlights, her skin glowed like snow. Her eyes held the commanding aura of someone who held the power of life and death in her hands. The old money elites, who used to ignore her or mock her as a boring wooden doll, were now lining up, champagne in hand, to kiss the ring of the ultra-wealthy, highly liquid single billionaire. "Ashley, you look so devastatingly beautiful tonight, I can barely look at you," Harper laughed, walking over in a sharp, plunging black tuxedo suit, handing her a flute. "Did you know Mrs. Eleanor literally just tried to set you up with her Ivy League law doctorate son? Thank her for me, but I am currently allergic to high-risk, low-ROI assets like men." Ashley took the glass, a lazy smile playing on her red lips. Just then, Ashley's burner phone, tucked into her velvet clutch, vibrated monotonously. It was an unsaved number, but her photographic memory instantly recognized it as the nurse's station landline at the public hospital in Brooklyn. She stood up slowly, gave a graceful nod to the Wall Street titans at her table, and glided out onto the quiet balcony overlooking the city. The cold wind brushed against her collarbone. She hit accept. Ashley. A voice so weak it sounded like it was about to snap, crackled through the speaker. If she hadn't listened closely, she wouldn't have recognized it as the once arrogant Nicholas Sterling. "It is me," Ashley said, her voice a flat line, cold as a glacier. "I am not going to make it," Nicholas gasped violently, every breath accompanied by a sickening rattle in his failing lungs. The doctors say total organ failure. Even the painkillers aren't working anymore. He had likely used the absolute last ounce of his strength to bribe a night nurse just to make this call. Dying men always develop a hilariously absurd need for confession. They think that if they can just extract forgiveness from their victims, they get a free pass to heaven. Ashley, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Nicholas actually began to sob over the phone. I shouldn't have tricked you into aborting the baby. That was my life. I killed myself. I am burning in hell every single day. Ashley, please, for the sake of the love we used to share, can you forgive me? Forgive. Ashley found the word spectacularly funny. Even on his deathbed, this man only cared about making himself feel better. He wasn't even mourning the unborn child. He was just weeping because he had destroyed his own cure. Below the balcony, Fifth Avenue flowed with endless traffic. The city's neon lights flashed with an icy, intoxicating glow. Ashley raised her crystal flute, staring at the golden bubbles, a breathtaking yet utterly ruthless sneer forming on her lips. Nicholas, you misunderstood something. Her voice cut through the static, crystal clear into the dying man's ear. I was never angry with you, because, as a top-tier investor, the second I realize an asset is fundamentally rotten to the core, I don't get mad, I just mercilessly liquidate it. The gasping on the other end hitched, as if her absolute icy calm had choked him. In fact, I really must thank you and Serena for cheating on me, Ashley continued, her tone as breezy as if discussing the weather. If you hadn't been so shamelessly disgusting, I wouldn't have realized what a repulsive parasite you are. If you weren't so selfish, I would have risked stretch marks and ruining my body to birth a burden that shared your vile DNA. I would have spent the rest of my life playing nurse at the bedside of a terminal patient. You, Nicholas Dry, heaved in agony over the line. So, Nicholas, have no regrets. You didn't wrong me, you saved me. You used your pathetic life and your family's millions to buy me my total freedom and a total rebirth. Ashley stepped up to the railing, looking down at the city ruled by money. Enjoy hell, darling, because up here on Earth, my life is absolutely fabulous. Without waiting for another sound, Ashley decisively hung up and permanently blocked the number. 10 minutes after the call ended, in the last room at the end of the hall, on the 3rd floor of the Brooklyn Public Hospital, the heart monitor let out one final, piercing wail. The man gripping the plastic phone receiver, his eyes bulging with ultimate regret, rage, and terror, let out a final sigh that sounded like a broken bellows. His body violently convulsed once, and he stopped breathing forever. His dead eyes stared fixedly at the ceiling, refusing to close. Because in his final moments, he finally understood. In this world, the most brutal revenge isn't screaming or stabbing someone. It is the victim standing at the absolute pinnacle of the world, looking down at you like a maggot as you die in a cesspool you dug with your own 2 hands. Inside the Met Gala ballroom, thunderous applause erupted. The climax of the charity auction had begun. The auctioneer held up a vibrant, stunning, impressionist painting and announced loudly, "Our final lot of the evening is a masterpiece titled Rebirth and Hope. Bidding starts at $1 million, $3 million. A cool, lazy female voice rang out from the front row. Everyone turned. Ashley elegantly held up her paddle. Under the awe-struck gaze of the entire room, her red lips parted, her voice echoing with absolute authority. And I will be donating this piece, under my own name, to the National Pediatric Leukemia and Cord Blood Research Foundation." Ashley stood up, turning to face the room of billionaires and elites. The light in her eyes outshone the diamonds on her neck. To honor the innocent lives who never made it into this world, due to the sheer stupidity and selfishness of certain people. A standing ovation shook the hall. Camera flashes went off like a strobe light, immortalizing her radiant, untouchable beauty. In this sea of applause and wealth bathed in the flashing lights, No one cared about the discarded trust fund boy who had just taken his last breath on a cheap mattress in Brooklyn. No one remembered the high school sweetheart rotting away in federal prison. All they saw was an impossibly lucid, rational, and fully empowered Wall Street queen, stepping over the corpse of the man who wronged her to finally wear her own crown. The story ends here. After all, who cares how the flies in the dumpster die? Ashley picked up a fresh glass of champagne, raised it toward the spotlight, and offered a slight toast to the air. Here is to freedom. Here is to clarity, and here is to glorious. Instant karma. Let us be precise about what Nicholas actually did, because the story is almost too baroque to believe. He had terminal leukemia. His pregnant wife, a former Wall Street analyst, who had voluntarily retired her own ambitions to become his perfect trad wife, discovered that their unborn child's cord blood was a perfect 10 out of 10 match. She was prepared to endure a full pregnancy specifically to save his life, he found out, and he paid $800,000 to have the baby quietly removed. Not because the child was unhealthy, because his mistress found the pregnancy inconvenient. That is not a betrayal. That is a man signing his own death warrant in triplicate, notarized and delivered to his own front door. What makes Ashley's response so structurally satisfying is that she never once acts outside her nature. She doesn't become a different person. She simply reinstalls the operating system she had suspended for this marriage, the cold, precise return maximizing machine she was before she decided to play at being soft. Every move she makes is consistent with who she was before he ever met her. The perfect wife was always a beta version. The original is what we're watching now. The soup is the opening move, and it is the one that tells you exactly what kind of story this is. She doesn't confront him. She feeds him. She simply enhances the conditions already present in his body and lets biology do the arithmetic. The genius of it is that she is not doing anything to him that he isn't already doing to himself. He was already taking black market medication with a collapsing immune system. She just optimized the outcome. The Tiffany blue gift box containing the freesia-scented panties is perhaps the most elegant single move in the story. Ashley didn't touch Serena directly. She simply forwarded her personal resume to the one woman in the zip code capable of ending her social career with a single phone call. No fingerprints, no confrontation, just a concerned neighbor, dedicated to community values, passing along relevant documentation. The precision is the art. The Napa Valley entrance is theater, and Ashley knows it. The crimson gown against the sea of white, the Maybach at the edge of the lawn, the soundboard she already paid off. She is not crashing a party. She is running the final act of a production she has been directing for weeks. The divorce papers, the asset manifests, the Dr. Martin recording. All of it was built while Nicholas was busy believing his wife was recovering quietly in bed. He thought he had cleared the board. She had been moving pieces the entire time. But the moment that lingers is not the vineyard. It is the phone call. Nicholas dying in a public ward in Brooklyn, spending his last coherent hour bribing a night nurse for access to a phone, calling the woman he destroyed, expecting what exactly? Absolution, a deathbed reconciliation. He wanted to be forgiven so he could feel like a tragic romantic rather than what he actually was. And Ashley, standing on a Met Gala balcony in Champagne Couture, tells him, "You didn't wrong me. You saved me." That sentence is the kill shot. Not because it is cruel, though it is, but because it is true. She means it completely. The man who called her a boring spreadsheet gave her back her own life. The man who forced her onto a surgical table freed her from a marriage built on the performance of smallness. His betrayal was, functionally, the best thing that ever happened to her. She raises her glass and hangs up. He dies 10 minutes later, staring at the ceiling. There is a type of person who believes that being loved means being needed. Nicholas needed Ashley's money, her competence, her legal exposure, her body. He confused dependency with devotion. And when he found a woman who needed him back, who made him feel tall by being smaller, he traded everything real for the performance of being wanted. It cost him everything, including the life he could have had. The final image, Ashley standing at the Met Gala auction, donating $3 million to pediatric leukemia and cord blood research, to honor the innocent lives who never made it into this world due to the sheer stupidity and selfishness of certain people, is the most surgical line in the entire story. She doesn't say his name. She does. The room gives her a standing ovation. The city moves on. Nobody asks about the man in Brooklyn. That is the final verdict on Nicholas Sterling. A footnote, already forgotten, in the story of a woman who simply resumed her life. So here is my question tonight. Was there a moment in a relationship, a marriage, a partnership, a friendship, when you realized you had been performing a smaller version of yourself specifically to make someone else feel larger? When did you notice it? And what was the cost of staying in that performance one day too long? What did you give up to make someone else comfortable in their own inadequacy? Tell me, I'll be in the comments.